killer with no conscience. A police force unable to halt a flood of murders.
They knew that there was a man out there who was hating prostitutes and was stalking them and killing them.
No woman is safe whilst he's about.
This is the story of the Yorkshire Ripper.
Killing prostitutes became an obsession with me.
He went out prepared to do evil, and he did do evil.
January 2nd, 1981. Just after 10 p.m., a cold night in Sheffield, England. Sergeant Bob Ring and his partner spot a car parked in a driveway near the city's red light district. They are on the lookout for a man who has terrorized northern England for 5 years. A man known as the Yorkshire Ripper. Like his namesake Jack the Ripper, who slaughtered 5 women in 1888, the Yorkshire killer has preyed on prostitutes.
He would approach them from behind, carrying a hammer, usually a ball peen hammer. He would strike them about the head several times and usually began stabbing his victims and slashing at them with a knife or a sharpened screwdriver.
Sheffield police pull behind the parked car and notice a man and woman in the front seat.
He parked his car in such a way that the local police officer noticed this and was suspicious about it.
They approach cautiously and quickly recognize the woman as a local prostitute. The driver has dark hair and a full beard. He claims the woman is his girlfriend, but the police don't believe him.
The young officer checked the registration plate with the police national computer and discovered that the car and the plate were different.
The man is identified as Peter Sutcliffe and is taken in for questioning. Over the next 2 days, he is subjected to intense interrogation and confronted with incriminating evidence. Then Sutcliffe calmly confesses, telling police who he killed, how he did it, and why he could not stop.
I'd been taken over by this urge to kill, and I couldn't fight it.
His tale of murder and butchery was likely a mixture of fact and fantasy.
Sutcliffe is a very manipulative, psychopathic liar.
Though he looked harmless, Sutcliffe's 33-page confession is a dark journey through the mind of a merciless killer.
He was just Mr. Ordinary. They're the guy next door, they're the guy on the bus, they're the man on the train. And they look just like us and they sound just like us, until one day we discover that they are the epitome of evil.
Until the summer of 1975, Peter Sutcliffe had led an apparently unremarkable working-class life. He was a truck driver who frequented neighborhood pubs and had a few minor run-ins with the law. Yet years of rage and fears of inadequacy had built up inside him, feelings that were about to boil over.
It was my intention to find a prostitute and make it one more, one less.
Olive Smelt and Anna Rogulski survived brutal attacks from an unknown assailant. Each was struck on the head repeatedly with a hammer, so badly injured they were unable to adequately describe their attacker. Police did little. They had come to accept a certain level of violence in the red light district.
The victims of serial killers are most often the throwaways in our society. Who's going to notice?
October 30th, 1975. Sutcliffe was making his way along the dark roads when he came upon 28-year-old Wilma McCann. The mother of 4 was trying to hitch a ride.
I was driving through Leeds late at night. I'd been somewhere, having a couple of pints.
He drove McCann to a quiet area and gave her a £5 note. In his confession, Sutcliffe claims that when he wasn't able to perform sexually, She mocked him.
She shouted, "You're useless." I suddenly felt myself seething with rage.
Sutcliffe grabbed a hammer from his toolbox and followed her into a nearby field.
I hit her once or twice on the head. She fell down, flat on her back.
He wasn't done. Sutcliffe went back to his car, retrieved a 7-inch long knife from his toolbox, and stabbed McCann 15 times in the throat and stomach.
That was the turning point. I realized I overreacted at the time. I was in a blind panic. I felt sick, and I still half expected a knock on my door by the police.
At dawn the next day, a milkman made his rounds through the council housing area of Scott Hall in Leeds. As he walked past a field, he saw a shapeless bundle on the grass. It was the body of Wilma McCann. In a small house nearby, McCann's children were waiting for her to come home. Her son Richard, only 5 at the time, remembers that morning vividly.
My sister Sonia woke me up, shook me and asked me to get out of bed and put my jacket on and said Mum hadn't come home, let's go look for her.
About 100 yards away, their mother lay in the field, covered in blood.
This is the spot where she was, and we had come within a few yards from where she was laid, and luckily it was a cold October morning and dark, so we were saved that, that terrible thing. We didn't actually discover her body, but that is where she was.
Local authorities soon arrived to begin processing the scene.
That instilled this fear in me of thinking the person that killed Mum was out there waiting to kill me.
At this point, police had no leads. No one had seen McCann with Sutcliffe. The knock on the door that Peter Sutcliffe expected never came. He was soon drawn to kill again.
After that first time, I developed and built up a hatred, and I felt an inner compulsion to kill a prostitute.
It becomes almost part of an adventure for him, a style of life that goes way beyond any notion of simple motive.
That's what people are struggling to try to understand. How does the brain, with genetics and with environment, come together to make someone like Peter Sutcliffe?
In the fall of 1975, Peter Sutcliffe bludgeoned and stabbed 28-year-old Wilma McCann to death. It was his first murder, and he got away with it.
I think in Peter Sutcliffe's case, it was finding a vulnerable victim, attacking that victim, finding he could get away with that, and realizing that he got some gratification out of the assault.
Investigators assumed the killer must be a disturbed man from the tougher areas that dotted northern England. A married middle-class truck driver was not who they were looking for.
He was not crazy. He wasn't running down the street, disheveled, yelling obscenities. He was just plain old Peter Sutcliffe.
Peter Sutcliffe had spent most of his life this way, passed over, unnoticed. He was born on June 2nd, 1946, the oldest of John and Kathleen Sutcliffe's 6 children.
He was born into a blue-collar household in a place called Bingley in North Yorkshire. Born to, I would have said, a fairly prosperous family in the sense that they all had jobs. They were Catholics. They went to church regularly.
It was a typical Yorkshire household. Peter's father, John, ruled the family with a firm hand. He had little time for his son, who was small and timid.
He'd often hide behind his mother's skirts as a small boy.